Go. So the Gemara Daf Hamad Aleph, and we're still analyzing the Braita that appeared on the bottom of Dalet Amud Aleph to Dalet Amud Bet. You'll recall there was a Braita that listed off a lot of different elements that were all related to the concept of Baal Te'acher. And then the Gemara on Dalet Amud Bet had cycled through different shitas about trying to understand when Baal Te'acher actually transpires. On the bottom of Dalet Amud Aleph, we saw Chayve Hadamin va'erchin va'hacharamin va'hekdesh chatot va'ashamot olot ushlamim tzedakot u'maasot bechor u'maaser u'pesach. The next page, Leket Shicha Upeya. Last year, 2 shiurim ago, we focused on Leket Shicha Upeya. Last year, we focused on Pazar Kashav and the Tosfot on Pazar Kashav, that acronym related to Sukkos. Remember? Now we're up to actually a strange dial back. What do I mean by a dial back? On Dalet Amud Aleph, it listed Bechor U'Maser U'Pesach. And the question is, what's Pesach doing there? Someone in the shir actually pointed out, and I poo-pooed it because I didn't want to deal with the question, but it's Taka, a good question. Korban Pesach, is there Baal Te'acher and Korban Pesach? I mean, a person says, I'm going to give a neder, so you have one Yontif, maybe 2 Yom Tov, maybe 3 Yom Tov, maybe they have to be in order, maybe. But Pesach, when's the mitzvah? One day. There's no about, you can't come in the middle of Pesach. I like to give a Korban Pesach now. That's why there's Pesach Sheni, remember? You can't come in Tammuz. I still didn't want Korban Pesach. It's very nice. It's too late. So, right. So now the Gemara on Hey Amud Aleph dials back and now wants to understand what is going on here. Pesach Sheni is a second opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah of Korban Pesach. If you were prevented, right, onus, you have to be, for reasons prevented beyond your control, you couldn't give Korban Pesach the first time.
Yeah, so
but it's not Baal Te'acher. Baal Te'acher means I made a commitment that I'm going to give a Korban of some kind, and I didn't fulfill it after 1 Yontif, 2 Yom Tov, 3 Yom Tovim. If you didn't give a Korban Pesach because you're a Posheya, you just decided, I'm not bothering with that. I live in Jerusalem, but I can't be bothered. Forget about it. No problem. I'm not going to do it. There's no Baal Te'acher. You're over on the mitzvah of Korban Pesach. It's a correct.
The question I asked last time. That's like saying I'm going to observe Shabbos. What is the commitment? It's a mitzvah. It's there. It's an obligation.
Right.
So it's not a matter of making commitment.
No, that's the point. That's why with Pesach it doesn't make sense.
Oh, okay.
The Gemara's question is, so what is Pesach doing on the list? Everything else is volitional. No one told you had to say, I'm makdish the following amount to the hekdesh. I'm giving to the Bedek Habayis. I'm going to give, that was our question with Leket Shicha and Peah also, remember? It's a mitzvah to do Leket Shicha and Peah. You don't get to choose, I'd like to, I wouldn't like to, Lo Mishaneh, right? So the question is, all right, we had to reckon with that. And it's a little bit out of order because now the Gemara dials back and says, wait, well, actually, it's not dials back. Before we started in Tosfot, this is the Gemara itself asking, what about Pesach? What's it doing here? So that's on Hey Amud Aleph, the Gemara Hey Amud Aleph, right? The word actually is Upesach. It's the last word on the line, and the narrow lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines up from the bottom of the narrow lines. Upesach bar mikra b'regalim hu, right? Pesach is offered on regalim, like it has something to do with like festivals, festival 1, festival 2, festival 3. Not related in the least, right? Right? Are you with me? So, the Gemara says it's set. It's fixed on a day. It actually says you have to give it on that day. And the Gemara says so. Pesach zimna kaviyah lei. I mean, if you didn't give it, so you're going to do it later? No, it's you dochet. It's too late. Too bad. Yeah? Right? So what does it mean? That's it. Too bad. If it was beyond your control, you're going to come back, you can do Pesach Sheni. But if it wasn't beyond your control, too bad. So, right? Now, by the way, giving Korban Pesach, everybody knows, you don't have to personally give it. You could be part of a chabura, people are going to give it, right? Not everybody gave their own Korban Pesach. There were groups, large groups in many cases, 20, 30 people offering the Korban Pesach, but it's not like a commitment that you pledge, can be paid off in the future. Amar Rav Chizda, Pesach Kidei Nazba. That's a very strange answer. Pesach Kidei Nazba basically means it was a figure of speech. You look at the list over here, Maisra, Bechor and Maser, meaning, Maser Behema. So Pesach was just sort of thrown in. That's a strange answer. Rabbeinu Chananel's Girsa here, if you look up Rabbeinu Chananel, the Rabbeinu Chananel here in the margin, if I can find it, I know where it is. I'm saying with a line. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 lines up from the bottom of Rabbeinu Chananel. He says, "Uparik Rav Chizda pasuk nibe, klomar chatoch zichro migo habraita." Rabbeinu Chananel says the word Pesach is a scribal error. Erase it. It doesn't belong here because we don't understand what it's doing here. Yeah, he's obligated to give that korban. It's not in the basket with the other korbanot. Just totally in a different league. So the Gemara points out, no. What is it? Rav Sheshet tries to rescue this. Rav Sheshet Amar, my Pesach, Shalmei Pesach. It's referring to the Shlamim of Pesach. Now, what is the Shalmei Pesach referring to here? Right? Look at Rashi. Upesach bar, we forgot to say that. I've got to read this one, but Shalmei Pesach. But the one before we should see also. The Pesach bar Mikra ben Regalim who? Right? Is it going to be related to the regalim? Are you going to give it on either regalim? The karmel leitana le'el bebal te'achar the shalosh regalim. V'harei yachol akriv el b'yudal b'nisim. It's the only day you can do it. If, be honest, it's not your fault. Something messed up, so you could do Pesach Sheni. But so now the last one. What's Shalmei Pesach? B'shelo kara bizmano she'ibed v'nitkaper be'acher. Excuse me. Hu na'aseh shlamim. You had a korban Pesach. He designated it, and aftaluchis. You lost it. Now it's Erev Pesach. The clock is ticking. So you run over to your favorite, goat seller in the market in the Cardo over there in Yerushalayim, the old city. I need a goat, quick, pronto. So you take that one. You offer it. And then what happens? After the second time, now you found your original goat. Had a little tag on it with your name. Now you're asking yourself, how could you lose a goat in Yerushalayim? Well, when there's one goat there, that's one thing. When it's 25,000 goats, it's not so hard, apparently. Yeah? It's you have to realize the signal to noise ratio. A lot of goats. So Rashi here just points out, now, what happens to the original one? Hunas shlamim, kidanafkale bipsachim, voten shlamim ichran, gimel regalim over. If that now, which became a shlamim, you said, I'm too tired. I'm not dealing with this now. There's a million people trying to get into the base of Mikdash. I got my korban Pesach, which, by the way, now is no longer alive. So you got to find a way to carry it because you got to roast it at home. So that's going to be a big deal. So you have another goat there. You're not standing in line for another korban. You're going to get back in line? Too long. There's no express express checkout, no self checkout. So what are you going to do? You bring it later. But I live in Cholon. I got to go all the way back to Cholon with the goat in the back, get a wagon. I'm driving the thing back, and that can be Baal Ta'acher. So the Bav Sheshet says that's what the Pesach is doing. I mean, literally crazy. Shalmei Pesach. There was a switcheroo, and now you're trying to make good on it because the fact that you designated it as a Korban Pesach and you couldn't give it as a Korban Pesach and something else was brought a Korban Pesach with a fulfill your mitzvah does not remove the Korban status of this Korban Pesach. It's just not called a Korban Pesach anymore. It's called a Shlamim. By the by, what is a Korban Pesach? If not, on a certain level, a modified Korban Shlamim. Part is offered on the Mizbeach. This is Rikas Adam, and you're going to eat part of it. That's a Shlamim. Yeah, I say it's modified because what do you say with the Shlamim? You can only eat in a very limited location. This one, you're roasting it off-site completely, and you get rid of it. What do you mean? Shlamim.
No, what I'm saying is it's Sukkot, and he's bringing the korban for Sukkot.
Yeah.
And he lost the korban.
Yeah. Sure.
Which raises the question.
And he finds it again.
But it raises the question is why Dafka they send Pesach?
Because it was originally designated Korban Pesach.
But what if he designates as a korban for Sukkot or Shavuot?
Oh,
or Rosh Hashanah?
oh, well said. And that's the next question of the Gemara. So if you already have regular, right, you already have regular shlamim. So what's the difference between this? And it's the bottom of the page. I love it. Our shir is reaching a certain level here, Madrega, after all these years learned together. Sometimes people anticipate like the next question of the Gemara. So you're thinking like, that's called a Gemara quote. Larry's preparing 2 hours before. He's got the crib notes. So what does it say here? Right? So my Pesach, Shalmei Pesach. Ihachi, Hainu Shlamim. That's the same thing. That's a Shlamim. Tana, Shlam Habayim Machmat Pesach. Tana Shlam Habayim Machmat Atzma. Okay, so the Shlamim on account of Pesach and Shlamim because they're Shlamim. Sukkos, Shavuos. Salkadaita Chamina Hoilu Machmat Pesach Ka'atu. You might have thought that since it comes on account of Pesach, i.e., it was switched for Pesach, Ka Pesach Damu. It's just like Korban Pesach, Kamash Malan. Tells you no, it's subject to the laws of Baal Ta'acher, whatever those laws may be, just like every other Korban. Look at Rashi, top of the page. The Pesach, Ka Pesach Damu, Uveregel Rishon Yavor Aleihen. Just like the Korban Pesach, you're over if you didn't give it in the right time. Now you have your second shlamim. Maybe it's Erev Pesach. You better run to give that Korban shlamim right now. It's not subject to Baal. In other words, I thought that the Pesach listed on this list was to tell you, don't think that you don't have to give this Korban as a shlamim. You do, right? It's like a chumrah. But it turns out, according to what the Gemara comes to now, it was a kula. What's the kula? I might have thought that since this shlamim, Mani Shtana Hashlamim, Zot Mikol Hashlamim, Chirim, is that this Shlamim was 5 minutes ago before I shechted the Korban Pesach on the Harabayit. This was a Korban Pesach. Maybe it carried with it the tchunot, the characteristics of a Korban Pesach, i.e., it's still the 14th of Nisan. Forget going home to the hotel or the tent where I have my family waiting. I'm going to roast the Korban Pesach on a spit and get ready for the Seder like a mensch. No, I got to take care of this Korban Shlamim. It's not a Korban Pesach, but I got to do it today. Maybe it's already, I'm toast at the end of the day because it's not the 14th of Nisan anymore. Kamash Malan, no. When it's downgraded to be a Shlamim, it's just like all the other Shlamims out there. It had to be called a Shlamim, called a Pesach, to tell you that even though it has a designation of being called the Shlamim, the Shalmei Pesach, to stand in for the Korban Pesach, well, not stand in. It's a demoted Korban Pesach. Don't think that it means that it's held to the standard of Korban Pesach in terms of when it has to be Nikrav. No, you have 3 regalim. Again, by the by, we'll see that's the next piece. Well, it's going to come up later. What about Rabbi Meir? Rabbi Meir thinks you have 1 yontif anyway. So what does he hold? We'll get to that.
This is excluded from Baal Te'acher.
It is part, well, the Korban Pesach itself is excluded from Baal Te'acher because it's only on that day. You don't have the latitude of later. The point is, once you had your stand-in substitute Korban Pesach because your first one got lost and you offered the second one, now you found the first one again. Maybe it has to be held to the same standard. It's not going to be a Korban Pesach because you only have one, but maybe you have to still give it at least that day as a Korban Shlamim. Yeah. Pardon? On Yudalad. You would think that Kamash Malan, no. It's on the list of things that are subject to Baal Ta'acher to tell you it doesn't have to be exactly on that day, but rather could be later on. Yeah? Okay. Now, I made a little mistake. I'm supposed to give out the Tanakh because without the Tanakh, we're not going to know what is flying next. So everyone find a Bible in your home or I'll put it on the screen. You're looking for the book of Dvarim. Let's just give out the Tanakh quickly. Otherwise, we're wasting our time together this evening. Oops. Took too many in my hand. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Dvarim. Thank you. Dvarim chapter, what is it? 23, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Dvarim 23. Dvarim 23. We'll look it up to see what's inside. Okay. Okay. For those just joining us tonight for the first time, you just stepped into the 401 class. So don't be discouraged. I give other classes that are the 101, 201, 301. You just walked into 401 and we're already off to the races. But everyone's welcome. Chapter 20, what are we? 22, it should be. Chapter 23, verse 22. Okay, and Sefer Dvarim. So 23, 22. Okay, so here I'm on page 239 in the full-size Koran Tanakh. We're looking at this pasuk, and it's a pasuk that concerns us because it is the pasuk that teaches us about Baal Te'acher, but the whole possibility, right, of delaying, deferring, and therefore having tarried to a certain point, we basically have violated this halacha that we find this mitzvah here. What the Gemara is going to do now is going to analyze every single word in this section of the Torah, word by word, and it's going to explain how every sentence, every clause rather within it teaches us another idea about our topic. So pasuk 22, Ki tidor neder laHashem Elokecha lo te'achel shalmo ki darosh yidursenu Hashem Elokecha me'imach v'haya b'cha chet. Yeah. In English, when you make a vow to your God, Hashem, really it would be Hashem, your God, but okay, do not put off fulfilling it, for Hashem, your God, will require it of you, and you will have incurred guilt. So, put off for how long? There's lo ta'acher, those don't tarry. Lo ta'acher, that's baal ta'acher, right? When you make a vow, right? Do not tarry to pay up your vow. The vows being referenced here, by all accounts, are related to offerings, korbanot. Because God will seek it out from you. He will come to call for it, if you will. In English, every translation is an interpretation. This is from the JPS translation I have here on the screen. Koren probably has a little bit different, but similar, right? When thou shalt vow a vow to the Lord thy God, there shall be slack to pay it, for the Lord thy God will surely require it of thee, and it would be a sin in thee. Okay, fine, close enough, right? Okay, everyone with me? So that we need this pasuk. You need to keep the Chumash open, because we're going to see the Gemara now that's going to try to understand this in depth. The Gemara here asks the question, Mina hane mile. And if you look at Rashi, Mina hane mile, de akol hanach de tani b'matnita le'el ikabal ta'acher. How do you know that each of the things that's mentioned in the Mishnah, it doesn't really mean Mishnah, it means the Braita, that they're all subject to Baal ta'acher? Okay. Question mark?
No, cough.
Close enough. Okay, so Menahani Mili, the Tan Rabbanon, Kiti Dor Neder, Ainli Ela Neder. It mentions Neder. Nedava Minayan. How do you know about Nedava? Nemar Khan Neder, V'Nemar Lahalan. Further along, it's really not just further along, but it should really be according to the Bach. Neder V'Im Neder O Nedava. Right? It says here about Neder, and later on it refers to a Neder. Right? And what is that? V'Im Neder O Nedava. Nedava imo, Afkan Nedava imo. If you look at the pasuk we need for this is really in Perek Zayin and Sefer Vayikra. V'im neder or nedava zevach korbano b'yom hakrivo et zivcho yachel u'mocharat v'anotar mimenu yachel. We're not looking it up now, but it's in Vayikra chapter 7. You can find it there if it is of interest to you to look it up. The point is that other pasuk makes mention of neder and nedava together. A hekesh neder. Neder, the fact that it's neder to different contexts. Inti dor neder, and neder and nedava, they go together. La Shem Elokecha, the next words in the pasuk in Perek Chaf Gimel, Elu hadamin, ha'erchin, v'acharamin, v'ikdeshot. How come? Those are all things that are involved in something you did, La Shem Elokecha, you gave it to Hashem your God. Why? Because they're all pledges of money that are going to go to the mikdash, financial contributions to the Beit HaBayit, etc. Lo te'achir l'shalmo, do not tarry to pay it up. Hu v'lo chilufav, it, you shall not tarry to pay up. But it doesn't refer to its substitute. These words are so cryptic that we're going to figure it out later on. Rashi in the first of the narrow line says, Hu v'lo chilufav, alava ta'over v'lo chilufav, not its substitute. Ulakamin mefarish la, hold that thought. That's like the hyperlink. Later on in the Gemara, it's going to open up the discussion again on what that clause means. But right now, it's just unpacking how do we know what's in that Braita, and it's going through Ki Dor Neder, Hashem Elokecha, right? Right.
Didn't we just say with Pesach that it Dafka does apply to the chiluf? Right, we just
hold that thought, right? So the Gemara is going to say, well, what's chilufav mean? We just had a case of chilufav of a substitute korban. So what do you mean not its substitute? If you just finished telling me the Gemara that Pesach was Shalmei Pesach, which is a substitute korban. Exactly. Art, well said. So we'll come back to that. That's like the highlighted line that later on the Gemara is going to draw a line out of it. Wait a minute, pointing back. What was that line in the middle of that quotation that we had? We're in the middle of explaining. Kidarosh yidrashanu, elu chataot v'ashamot olot ushlamim. So here we have God will come and seek it. right? In English, colloquially, it's translated as will require it, but it means God will seek it out. He's asking, your commitment. It means you need to give these things. A chatat, an asham, an ola, a shlamim offering, yeah? That you've committed to in some way. And then it says again, Hashem Elokecha in the pasuk a second time, right? Ki darosh yidroshenu Hashem Elokecha me'imach. So what's Hashem Elokecha? Elu tzedakot umasud ubechor. That's being referenced in those words. Now it's a bit cryptic. Like what? We're going to see Rashi in a minute. Try to unpack this. Yeah. Because like, well, this word, that word. Okay, me'imach. What is me'imach over here? Zeleket shichopeya. To tell you the subject somewhat about the acher again. Ayin Sham Tosfot that said, when is that ever going to actually happen? Remember? Okay. Vayabachachet v'lo b'korban chachet. Yeah, you're going to get the sin, but your korban doesn't get the sin. Why is your korban getting a sin? It's not subject to sins. It seems to, and we'll come back to it maybe a little later tonight if there's time. Maybe it'll be next week, but just give you the preview. It means that don't think that if you've been over in Baal Ta'achar, you don't still have to give the korban. That somehow the korban is canceled out. Yes, you got a fine for being late. The fine is you violated this Isser, lo aleinu, but you still have to give the korban that you pledged. Just now it's later than it should have otherwise been. Yeah, still, it's still in the offing. Yeah. So the Gemara, excuse me, let's do Rashi first. Go back again to the top. Menahan Emili, right? De'akol hanach de'tanu matnita le'el ikabal te'acher. So neder is harei alai, nedava harei zu, right? A neder, remember, we said that a neder is I took the commitment on, I will give a korban. I didn't specify which. Nedava is this korban. L'mayna afkamina, the korban gets lost or stolen. I don't have to give the nedava anymore because the object is gone. But if it's a neder, the commitment stays, even if I was pulling, the animal to the mikdash, doesn't matter. Too bad. Neder was nedava. So nemer lahala neder v'im neder or nedava. So there was neder or nedava. So whenever you have the word neder could be nedava. It's interchangeable, and that's why neder and nedava were on the list. That why is it lashem elokecha? Those words, the financial contributions, because it goes to Bedek Habayit, it goes to the temple treasury. It's going to go to the upkeep of the base of Mikdash. Kohanim get zilch. Does Kohanim get nothing? Where it's going to be? It's going to stay related to Hashem elokecha. So that's the drasha. Next. We saw that already. It says, well, you'd be over for that one, but not for the substitute for it. Later on, the Gemara will have to explain what that is, because it's impossible to explain now, because it's in the middle of the list, unpacking every one of the words in the pasuk, every clause in the pasuk. It'll dial back to this one and say, what is this about? So hold that thought. Elu chataot v'ashamot she'nidrashin mimcha sharei chovahem mutalin alecha. Right? A chatat or an asham. If God forbid someone did the wrong thing, they want to give a korban to make redress. So that's he darosh yidroshanu. It's being sought or required from you because it's something you did. It's a consequence. What are olah and shlamim here? So olah and shlamim are kigon olat riyah v'shalmei chagiga. Olat riyah and shalmei chagiga. Korbanot associated with aliyah l'regel. The olah of coming to be at the mikdash for one of the shalosh regalim. The Shalmei Chagiga are the Shlamim offerings you're going to give as part of your celebration. That's the food you're going to eat on Yom Tov. Remember on the Seder plate, you got the shank bone and the egg. So the shank bone is L'Zecher LePesach. And what's the egg really Zecher to? Zecher LeKorban Chagiga. Because the Korban Chagiga enabled you to eat the Korban Pesach al HaSofa. So we have Kagon, Olat Re'iyah V'Shalmei Chagiga, Shein Chova, right? The Elu, the neder v'nadav b'reisha dekraktive v'odinam debechor l'maasir pesach shein chova. Rashi here has to point this out. I thought a shlamim. A person says I want to give a shlamim. Person declares I want to give an olah. That's not being referenced here. Person says I want to give an olah. I want to give a shlamim. That's a neder. That's a nedava. That's not a shlamim or an olah being referenced here. Shlamim means a shalmei chova called a shalmei chagiga. You're obligated to give a korban chagiga when you come up for a lila regel and an olat re'iyah. Not an olah offering. I want to give a donation to Ribbon Olam, so I'm going to give a korban olah. No, this is not that volitional korban olah that you took on as a neder. It's a korban of a chova. Olat riyah, shalmei chagiga. And this Rashi clarifies that that's why they're on the list. And now you understand why they're grouped with chatat and asham. Because chatat and asham is a reaction to, a result rather, a consequence of your action. Your chait needs redress. So what do? You bring a korban chatat, korban asham. I've been Ola and a Shlomim I thought was volitional. No. There are two cases where they are not volitional, and that's the mitzvah Aliyah L'Rega. We have a korban Olat Re'iyah and a korban Shalmei Chagiga. Those two have to be given. Okay, so that's why they're together. Dorosh Yidroshenu. Next, Hashem, and Maser and Pesach, right? They're all the Bechor Maser and Pesach are all a chova. You see this little hay over there, right? Because of course, what's the word Pesach doing there is also a question. And again, Shalmei Pesach, then it is a Shlamim, so maybe, I guess you could say, well, it's an obligation to give it, but it's not because it was original obligation. The original obligation, Korban Pesach, but this was demoted from being the original Korban Pesach to now a Shlamei Pesach. Reference our previous conversation. Did I lose every one of you with me? Sort of? Yeah? Like, why is it in there? Rabbi Chanana would say, just skip the word Pesach. It's a mistake. It shouldn't be there. I mean, according to the first opinion, at least. The second opinion says, no, sorry. Even Rabbi Chanana acknowledges that Rav Sheshet is the one who declares, no, Pesach's there. It doesn't mean literally Korban Pesach. It means Shalmei Pesach. Fine. That's
Rabbi,
here.
Rabbi Engel,
Yeah, Sully, please.
for the Korban Pesach, you were saying goat, but isn't it going to be a set or an age?
Yeah. Whatever it's going to be. Livestock. Yeah. It could be a sheep. Yeah.
And it should be 1 year old, right? Now, is every shlamim only 1 year old? Or
so you're getting ahead of me, because that's going to be the next question. What if the korban's too old to be given? It passed the date, because some of the shlamim have to be over a year, but less than 2. What if you had Baal Tach and became 2? So can you give the korban? It's too late.
Because like a shlamim, like a 1 year old seh, we just learned this with Daled Behay. A 1 year old seh you can carry on your shoulders. It's only about 12 pounds. So the way I understand, the way it worked on Pesach is you brought a korban Pesach and you had to be assigned to a group. Right. But really, from the korban Pesach, you ate very little. You had only a small piece. Most of your meal was from the korban chagiga. Right. That is your main course. From the Pesach, you take a little bit.
Dessert.
It's a small little animal.
Dessert. It's
dessert. Have maybe 20, 30 people in.
Dessert, correct. You're eating a shear, you're eating kazayas, but probably not much more than that. That's true. That's true. If you're a very small family, very small chabura, which I suspect there weren't. Again, you have to think about even though the world population is small, the Jewish population is smaller. You've seen what the Har Bayit looks like. We would be talking about thousands and thousands of people in 3 different sets going in to be mockery of the korban, do the shechita, etc. How are they doing all this? It's not every individual had their own, every family had their own. It was big groups. Yeah, right. But because of the requirement, it's also a parsha of Shavua from this past week, because the korban Pesach had to be eaten al hasova. How were you going to be satiated if that was your main meal? It wasn't. Korban chagiga was the main meal. Exactly. Yasher koach. Look at with me at Rashi, the next Rashi. Me'imach. No, sorry. Hashem Elokecha elu tzedakah u'masrot. Deha kra yeterahu. Why do I have to say Hashem Elokecha a second time? Right? Dehalu l'mitzvah ki derosh yidroshenu ukvar Hashem katuv l'mala b'mikra. Right? Nidrosh Bey. So we'll darshan it, the Gemara says. The second time it says Hashem Elokecha in the pasuk in Parshat Ki Teitzei. Why is it 2 times, right? Look at verse 23. Ki tidor neder la Hashem Elokecha. Right? Ki tidor neder, I'll read it again. Ki tidor neder la Hashem Elokecha. Lo terachil Hashem Elokecha ki derosh yidroshenu. Hashem Elokecha. Me'imach. Why do you say it a second time? I have it already 1 time in the pasuk. Says Rashi, that's what the Gemara is claiming here. Nidrosh Bey la tuyet tzedakah u'masrot. It must be expensive here, and the reason why it appears in this context is in order to tell us that it is referencing other things that are included in those words Hashem Elokecha. And then the Bach says it's actually ubechor shekatuv bahen sham zeh sham. Yeah, well, hold on. Ubechor shekatuv bahen sham zeh ulecha tia tzedakah lifnei Hashem Elokecha. Yeah. In the 2 psukim in Sefer Dvarim, and that's L'chati Tzedakah. Is that about the giving him back his mashkon, his avot? Hold on. Yeah, the avot. Yeah, there it is with the ayin avot. Yeah, the 2 psukim that reference Maser Behema, the Bechor, and the Matzah Behemoth Bechor, meaning, and the issue of tzedakot, there are two other psukim in Sefer Dvarim. They have the words Hashem Elokecha. So there's a hekesh, Hashem Elokecha, Hashem Elokecha. Those two ideas must be included there. They tell me, like, is that the pshat? No, it's not the pshat. It's a drasha. It's not meant to be the pshat. But the Gemara wants to explain to us where it's the source hinted at in the Torah to these concepts that appear in the Braita. Both on Hashem Elokecha. Meimach chelko shel ani dichtiv be et ha'ani imach. Now that's a real drasha because that context of Shemot Chaf Bet is Parshat Mishpatim referencing an ani, but an ani who is waiting for a loan, not like a shich and peah. From the pasuk that we all know so well, in kesef talved ami et ha'ani imach lo tiyelo kinoshelo tisimun alav nashach. If you lend, or when you lend, according to the drasha, it's like a mitzvah chiyuvis. When you lend money to within your nation to the impoverished among you, do not be an overlord or someone who's oppressing them. Do not give them a interest. Basically, don't lean on them. Just give them a loan. Mitzvah, the loan money to fellow Jews in need. So it has the word imach. Oh, like a shich and peh is also for poor people. You'll tell me again, but that's not the pshat. It's not supposed to be the pshat. The whole point is just to explain how is this pasuk Baal Ta'acher? How can a person, you, me, the next person, this summer, Mirzi Shem, will read Parsha Kitetse, and when the Baal Kriya will come to this pasuk and read the pasuk, many of us, those of us who are holding by the Brisa on Daled and Manaf, and Rosh Hashanah say, oh, okay, this is this. Well, remember the whole list. Now, I'm not claiming it's exclusively a mnemonic device. I'm just saying that becomes the association. The Torah Shabbat past function is to tell you, you know what the backstory on these words are. You know what Moshe Rabbeinu is learning from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's to be a Lachol Moshe Messina because it's Darshan from Sukkim, but it came from here. I did not look this up in the Sifri, the Medrash Halacha on Sefer Dvarim, but I suspect that on this pasuk, Medrash Halacha goes according to Parsha Shavua, that when you get in the Sifri to this parsha, you flip to it. Look at that. The drasha is these words on this pasuk. You follow what's going on? It's not that we had the Braita and then we backloaded it back in for a mnemonic device purpose. That'd be more of an asmachta or some such thing. It is a drasha, but we should understand, like, it's not giving us the pshat of the pasuk. It's pointing out something seemingly superfluous here. It's not superfluous. It's to remind you about another concept that's related here that Ron Shalom wants you to know. Here is what's on the list. By the by, the list is not really disputed. If you notice, it's like it's a Braita, but it's stam. No one, it's not like three people say, well, it's not on the list, it's not on the list. The argument is what's Baal Ta'acher, but the argument's not what makes it. You follow? Now the Gemara will dial back and say, what's this business with the Chiluf Fav? And that's Amar Mar back into the Gemara. Sorry, I didn't come up for air. Questions, comments, or do we move forward? Speechless. Amar Mar. So I'm right now, we're after the drasha of the whole pasuk. We went through every word, check, or every clause, check, up top of every word, right? Went through it. On the Gemara now, the first word on the line is chait. That's not really related to that. And the next word, Amar Mar, lo te'achel shalmo, hu v'lo chilufav. Said the master, we just quoted his words just now, do not tarry or be delayed in paying it off. Means l'shalmo, it, but not referencing its chiluf, its substitute. Asks the Gemara, chilufe mai? What exactly are you referring to it as a chiluf? What do we mean? If you're talking about that you had an ola or a shlamim, and you did some kind of a switch. What's the switch? You had a shlamim offering, and you promised Hashem I'm going to give a shlamim offering. And then you brought this animal, and you already designated it. Then it got lost. Then you found another korban. You went to the market and quickly bought another shlamim. Looks like exactly the same animal. You bring it, and then you find the first one. Okay, what are you going to do with the original one now? The first one. So my chilufa. So i chilufe chatat. Sorry. Where am I here? I chilufe olo shlami mikrav karve. You have to just offer it. You give it. It was already designated as a korban. It goes. I chilufe chatat lamita. If it was a chatat offering, we have different conditions where the chatat, if you can't be makriv the chatat, it just it dies. It's left to die. We can't give it as a korban. Can't work it in a field. You pen it up. That's the end. Chatat lamita. So Lamita Azla, sorry, it goes to death. Nothing else you could do with it. All right, we're stuck. Oh, Ella my chilufav. So what's the chilufav we're talking about here? Where there's a drasha hu velo chilufav. It is subject to Baal Ta'acher, but not its substitute. Chilufe toda, a case of a korban toda. Now recall, korban toda has two components. There's the animal, and there's the business with 40 loaves. So the Tane, Rabbi Chia teaches toda shenit arva bitmurata. If a korban toda gets mixed up with its substitute, umeta achat mehen, chaverta ein la takana. If it gets mixed up with its with another one, with its friend, and then one of it dies, there's no takana. Okay, what is going on here?
Substitute.
Means the substitute. Now,
But the Gemara must be talking, the Toda is only referencing the other holidays because you can't bring it on Pesach because it's chametz.
not right. So it's not even, this case is not even talking about holidays.
Not talking about holidays.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Remember, the korban, you said you're going to give the korban toda. You're right. So you couldn't give it on a Pesach. Shavuos you could. Sukkot you could. But don't forget, the chances are you're not going to give it on the Yom Tov. You're going to give it on Chol Hamoed. You're going to give it right. So like this, the korban toda was a korban plus 40 loaves. There's a prohibition on trying to make a deliberate substitution between two animals. If you lost the first animal, you have no choice. You made a commitment. Now you came to Yerushalayim, you don't have the animal. And you said you're going to give a korban shalom. So how do you make good on it? You designate another animal. That's not the case here. The case here is, what if a person had a korban, the animal part of the korban toda, and for some reason, don't ask me why, they decided I'm going to put in a substitution and keep this animal for myself or something. You're not allowed to do that. The Torah at the end of Sefer Vayikros is not allowed to do that. But if you did that, here's your penalty. They're both now with Kedusha, and they both have to be offered. However, even though you switched from animal A to animal B, because you thought you're big chacham, and it's not going to be allowed to use korban B as a korban toda, only A is the real korban toda. Will the real korban toda raise its paw or with its hoof? And 40 loaves will be associated with that korban toda. Now here's what happened next. Animal A and B are twins, and they're mixed up, and one of them died. Now we're stuck. Because, and that's what the Gemara will say, Heichina Avid, what are we supposed to do? Likarva, likriv lechem ba'ada dilma tmurahi. If really you're going to offer it, and it's 40 loaves that go with it, and you're going to say this is korban toda, what if it's really animal B? If it's animal B, we're not allowed to give 40 loaves. That would be the equivalent of you're bringing in something that is chulin into the mikdash, because not part of the korban. The 40 loaves are only permitted to be part of this korban if you're giving the actual korban toda, but you don't know if you are. It's a suffix. And conversely, if you just give the animal without the loaves, so that's not a fulfillment of the korban toda. So now you're stuck. So the Gemara thinks maybe the chilufav we're referring to here, there's Baal Ta'acher for the animal, but not for chilufav, is a case of chilufe toda. And the case of chilufe toda, it's kind of a labyrinthine case, yeah? You decided against the Torah, you violated the Isser, and you engaged in Tamura, which means I'm transferring the Kedusha from animal A, which is my korban toda animal, to this lovely other animal. It looks just like it. Animal B, who'll know the difference? I mean, it's maniacal because you're thinking like, is Hashem not going to know? Of course I'm going to know. So the Kohen tells the guy, you made a mistake. Too bad. Now they're both hekdesh. You're going to give them both. You didn't gain anything by doing this. But korban A remains the real korban toda, and the loaves go with that. But P.S., they're twins, and one of them dies, and we don't know which one died. Mark, go ahead.
So where does let's just go with the position that 3 Yom Tovim make you a Baal Ta'acher. How do we overlay that here? Meaning, I was supposed to bring, I said I was going to bring something. Let's take Pesach out, Sukkot. Okay. If I miss Sukkot, am I right is that a chalufe, and then I have 3 more Yom Tovim for that? Or is that just something I do after and has nothing to do between the two? They're connected. And if I miss 3.
Okay, so let's take a regular case without this business of chilufa. Regular case, you agree to give a korban toda before Sukkot.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So Sukkot comes and goes, and now you have Sukkot is 1, Pesach is 2.
Shavuos is 2.
Shavuos is
Pesach-
3.
Right,
That's what it is.
Right.
Now, not according to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai.
right. But let's go
Remember, Rav
back
Shimon Bar
and
Yochai
just,
holds Rosh Hashanah is Nisan, meaning Pesach, remember? And so you always need Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, no matter what. So
right.
you don't
All
go
right.
to the next year. But in
Right.
that case, that's Baal Ta'acher. But now, in this case, with the Chilufav, one of them died. You don't know which one died. So when are you going to give it? So the Chiluf, assuming that animal B, you could identify as animal B as the Chiluf.
Takes on that same past time, Pat?
Right.
Or does it get a new time?
No, that's what it's saying. That's the point. What was the word? Lishalmo hu velo chilufav. Lotach lishalmo. Don't be late to pay for it. It being the original korban you designated, not the substitute. And now we're up to the substitute. Fine, no baal ta'acher there. Hu velo chilufav. So that working hypothesis now is it's referring to this crazy case of the korban toda where we're locked. We don't know what we're supposed to do. So that's not going to work. Right? So what are you doing? Yeah. So then v'ha keva delav bat hakravahi pralamute lamali. So yeah, but according to that logic, where you're stuck, okay, so you're stuck. So I need a pasuk to tell you that you're not going to be over on Baal Ta'acher. It doesn't matter if you're going to be over or not over. You can't do anything, right? You got me into tied me up in knots. Something was, okay. I'm going to have Sheish Olam, Lemute Chilufe Ola Ushlamim. It really is about Chilufe Ola Ushlamim. You had an Ola or Ushlamim, and you did a switcheroo, not a Korban Toda. Again, Tmura, but you did the switcheroo, and you had this problem. What are you going to do with it now, right? Well, here's the case. Two regalim went by. V'humam. It got you had your original cow. You're going to give as a korban. You're bringing it to the base of Mikdash. You're two strikes already. You're before the third Yom Tov, and now it got a mum. So what did you do? I'm stuck. The korban shlamim got a mum. I made it a commitment. Another, I'm going to give a korban. So what am I going to do? V'chilalo al acher. Now I transferred the kedusha of this shlamim, which now has a mum, onto another cow. Now that's going to have the korban shlamim status of my original cow. The avar lav regel echad. Now one regel went by. Remember, I told you I have 2 strikes on the first korban. So salka daita chamina hoil mikoch kama kaati kimanda avar lav gimel regalim dami kamash malan. Plain simple English. 2 regalim went by. I didn't give the korban. Now I know I'm coming to my limit, my deadline. So I bring the animal. My bad luck, the animal becomes a Baal Mum. It trips, breaks a leg, and it'll heal, it won't heal, but I can't use that as a korban now. So I go to the market quickly, and I make a transfer, the korban status of this animal, which now has a mum, to another animal. So question, when you transferred the Kedusha, did you transfer the 2 strikes also? You would have thought, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So Kamash
Right,
Malan,
exactly.
hu velo chilufav. Meaning the clock resets when you have transferred the Kedusha to the other animal through no fault of your own. You had no choice because the first animal became a Baal Mum. Rashi fills this out. If you look at Rashi on Chilufei Toda, he writes here, Ukegon shnit arva barishona. It got mixed up. V'kaimelan al zebach hatoda chalot hatoda te'una lechem. V'lo chalifata, v'lo tmurata te'unin lechem. Not the substitute, not the tmura, which is the deliberate substitute. Right? Umeita chavne, one of them died. Shim hayu shtein kayamot. Let's say no animal had died in the Toda case, back in the Toda case. No animal died. You had the first animal, and you decide to be a chacham, you do the second animal, you're over on Tamura, lo yamir, but you did. Okay, now they both have Kedusha. Now you know what you do? Bring both korbanot with 40 loaves, and you say out loud, either the 40 loaves go on the first animal I'm giving, or the second animal I'm giving, because they got mixed up. One of these is the korban toda. The problem is if one of them dies. Rabbi Yossi is saying, Shchina toda tikadesh ha'arba'im k'mishpata aval meta in the chaver takana. If one of them died, what's the takana for the other one? Because we don't know what it is, a 50-50, right? So what are you going to do in that circumstance? Vehachi, not vehechi, vehachi, m'mayit kra mibal ta'acher. And that was the working hypothesis. That's what the Torah was being memayit when the words lishalmo, right? Lo ta'ach lishalmo, it, but not chilufav. But then we end up saying the Gemara says, no, that doesn't really wash, right? Because we're saying if that's really what it's about, so why is that not such about to? You're locked in. You could never give this korban. So it's not like the chiluf case is not can't really be a korban toda because it's you're at a roadblock.
But you're saying you can't give-
Ola and shlamim cases. What?
You're just saying that you really can't exchange a Toda. That's basically what you're saying.
That's correct. But the point is, if your shlamim or your ola on the way up to the mikdash become a balmum, you might have thought kasal kadaita chamina, that having transferred the kedusha to a fully healthy animal that you are planning to bring, maybe you also transferred its criminal record. I mean, it strikes that
Yeah, right.
Galamari went by. No, kamash malan l'ta'achil
That-
shalmo hu v'lo chilufav, meaning the clock resets. You have another 3 regalim. I have to stop here actually because I have to run out, believe it or not, to a meeting before my 8:15 share. I gotta go and come super quickly. It's nice talking with everybody. Next week, God willing, a shear again, 7 p.m. In health and happiness. So wish everyone a great night. And if you're staying for the shear at 8:15, then stick around. If not, we'll see you soon.